Hi everyone. Today topic is on NestJS JWT Auth HTTP only cookie. Okay. In this series, I'm going to make 3 videos where this is the first installment of this series. Okay. So in this series, in this first video, our main goal is to register a user into our application using our NestJS endpoint. Okay, before jump into creating our sample application, I want to mention that this entire session, what I am going to explain about user registration has been already made as a blog. Okay, so the link will be available in the description of the video. Okay, so let's jump into creating the sample NestJS application. So sample is created successfully. Let me open my project in Visual Studio Code Editor. Here is my NestJS application. Okay. Now for user registration, for saving data, we need database. So for my demo, I am going to use Postgres SQL, which is a free open source relational database. Okay. So in my local system, I enabled Postgres SQL by using the Docker. Means I am running Postgres SQL Docker image. You can observe here. My container name is Postgres. Okay, this is Postgres SQL. Okay, this is the uh, desktop application for the Docker. Okay, so how to run Postgres SQL into our local system by running the Docker image, and how to create the container, and how to interact with the SQL, and how to create some basic queries. I have already made a video on it. So for the link for the video will be available in the description. You can go and check out there. Okay. See, if you can observe here, it is green highlighted, right? Here's box. That means this is running. Okay. You can see it shows for option like stop. Means it is running. And to interact with the Docker image, I have using the Docker interactive command line interface. Okay. So for that, you need to execute this command to open the interactive terminal. Once the terminal is open, I have a database like my old DB. So to connect with, this is the command to connect with any specific database. Okay, slash space your database name. Okay, after that you can normally query your table. So here my table is users. So here it contains username, first name, last name, email, and password, and a refresh token, and refresh token expiration. So these are all my table columns. So in detail explanation for how to create table everything on the command line interface I have given in the video. So that video is link will be available in the description. You can check over there. Okay. So this is my table structure. Okay. So if you come back to my blog, I have provided the script for how to create the table. So you simply open the Postgres interface, close this Postgres interface and run your table. Or if you have physically installed software for Postgres SQL, you can use it as well. Okay, it is up to you. For my demo, I am using the Docker. Okay, so this is the command. So that's all about the database. Let's jump back to our application. Now, so we have defined our database. Now we have to communicate with to the database from our NestJS application. So to communication, we need some libraries like type ORM. So to communicate with the database, we need library like type ORM. So this library contains some boilerplate of code with the simple configuration. They, they can make our application to talk with the database. So they can uh, fetch the data from the database. So let's install those libraries. Okay. So for that, you can find a subtopic like install ORM or PostgresSQL npm packages. Okay, let's install them. So if you observe the first package like NestJS type ORM, this is TypeScript boilerplate contain type ORM package. Okay, copy that command and install it. NestJS type ORM install. Let's install another package. That is uh, raw ORM, nothing but the Node.js ORM. Okay, so this is the original type ORM. For this is the wrapper we have installed it initially. That is the wrapper type ORM. Okay, so now install Node.js type ORM as well. And finally, we need to install the PostgresSQL library. Okay. Okay, now we have installed required packages for communication with the database. Now let's configure the PostgreSQL into our application so that we can communicate with the database. For that, go to file like app module.ts. Okay, so in the app module.ts, so you can see intelligence type ORM module. You need to import type ORM module. Okay, so in that you have to call method like for root. So these options, type or model options, are nothing but our configurations to the database. So let's configure them. Okay, first like host. Since I am using my local running Postgres Docker in local, right? So host will be the local host. Okay, and port number you need to specify port. Okay, so port number, if you go to Docker, actually default port number of Postgres database is running 5432. So what I did is on for exposing that port number, Docker running port number to my local port number, I used same port numbers. So exposed port number also 5342. But you can expose different port number as well. Okay, how this port can be configured? You can check my video on PostgreSQL Docker video. There I have explained. So here I have used same port number, right? So I am configured same. Actually, you can configure your own port number while using Docker. So 5432. And here we need to specify like type. So type is nothing but which type of database. Mine is Postgres, right? So I have to specify Postgres. Okay. And port number. Okay. Username to log in. We need to specify the username. So the default username of the Postgres is Postgres only. Okay. And the password. This password will be set by ourselves when we run the container, Docker container. So I have given password like secret. So I am giving here. Next, databases. So here I want to connect with the database like I have mentioned right here my database. This is my database. Means my old DB. And next is entities. So entities are nothing but the TypeScript classes that represents the PostgresSQL table. So whatever tables we will use in our application, all those tables must be registered here on the entities. Okay. So that's all about the configuration. Okay. And to check our application is connection is established perfectly or not, what you can do means you can run our application. So here you can observe, right, without any issues, it is compiled successfully. For suppose, let me change my database password to something wrong one. Now check. See, error occurred. See, unable to connect with the database. Password authentication failed for the user Postgres. So from the exception, we can understand our password is wrong. So in this way, we can understand our DB connection is established or not. Okay. Now, next thing is I need to create the user files, means user module files. So for that, I simply uses the advantage of NestJS CLI. Through command, I am going to create entire user module. Okay. So command is like nest G for generation, MO means generate module. Which module I can specify user, so that it will automatically create a folder, and inside of that folder it will add users module. Okay. And it will by default generates a spec file, which means testing file. For my demo, I don't want that file to be generated, so I can use flag like, so module file won't have test file. Okay, no need that flag. So let's run it. So you go here, you can see new folder created and user.module file has been added. Okay. Similarly, I will create a service, controller, and the entity. Entity nothing but the table class. Okay. Next thing, next generate service. For service, we can use S. I can simply say same users. And here I need to specify flag. See, service has been created, and you can see here updated user module means service will automatically updated into the user module. Okay. Now let me create controller. Controller CO. Now you can see here users controller added. Let me delete this spec file. So in the module file, its reference will be added. The controller's reference. And now finally, I want to create a class. NestJS generates here. It is class, right? I need to specify path as well. So users. So it is created, and delete spec file as well. Okay. So ultimately our user module looks like this: the controller and module and service and table entity. Okay. So first thing I want to do is I want to create the update the fields in this class so that will represent my database table. Okay. So let me copy paste my code snippet to save some time. So this is my updated user class. See, here I am using some benefits from the type ORM. Okay. So how it compatible with our database? Like to make it table compatible, we need to decorate with empty entity, and similarly field should be decorated with the columns. And you can observe here name that specifies exact name that was created in my database. Here in database, everything is created in small case only, every letter. So here we will map by using this name property. Okay. So this is how it's look. So if you want, you can pause video and you can type it. Okay. That's my user class. Now, once we have created a table representing class, right? We must import it it class in its own module as well as in the app module. So for that, first open my user module. So let's create imports array and type ORM module. Here you need to specify for future. For a root means parent, for future means child modules. Okay. Here I can specify user. Okay. So that's it, and go to now app module. Here in the entities array, while registering type ORM, need to give the users. Okay. So that's fine. Now the thing is, let's implement our logic for user registration. So for implementing our logic, uh, I need to create two classes like request object and response object. These are like model classes. Okay. So let me create them. So let me create first a request object for registration payload. Okay. NestJS models slash registration request model hyphen no spec. So it will create model folder, models folder, and class for me. So just refactor it. And so what should be my payload should look like. Okay. So this is how my payload for registration will be. So for sample demo, these are the properties required for me, like first name, last name, email, password, and confirm password. Okay. Next thing is I need a response model, right? So let me create NestJS models slash registration resp dot model. Okay. Hyphen no spec. So this is my response model. Once user successfully logged in, this object I am going to return. Okay. This will contain something like status, boolean, like authentication, registration is successful or not, and a message. parameters. Okay. So these are the request response models of my registration endpoint. Okay. Now what I will do, I'll simply close. I simply update my user service TS. So first thing is here in this service class, my database communication should be invoked. So to communicate, we can use a built-in repository, generic repository. So that can be very helpful to invoke the database. So it will contain all the useful boiler code snippets where it will help us very easy for communication with the database. So first thing I need to inject the user repository. Okay. So at the rate inject repository. Okay. It is from type ORM. And inside of it, I need to specify which repository. This is for user. Okay. Import that user. Next thing is user repository. Okay. That's from node type ORM. Okay. And here I need to specify user. Okay, now this variable will have all default methods that can communicate with our database. Okay, so first thing is I want to do some basic validations for my registration user. So let me create a private method. So private registration validation. Okay, so my request object, request payload. Okay, and its type should be registration request model. Okay, and I want to return from here some error message, so it should be string. Okay, so what I will do first, I will check email exist or not. If not exist, return some error message. Okay, next I will check for email validation rule. So let me create regex for email rule. So I'm just copying some random pattern from the Google. So that is my regex. So now what I will do, rest. So what is that? Request payload dot email dot to log. Okay. Not matched. Then simply return in. Okay. Next I want to cross check the password and confirm password. So password. Okay. And finally, I also want to check whether the email is already registered or not. Okay. That means we need to communicate here the database. So here I can use user variable, this dot user variable, and find one. Here I need to specify the property, which property I want to search with. I want to search with email. So our first payload email value. Okay. If existing user not equal to null and existing user dot user, so it is asynchronous, so I need to await it. Okay, user ID. Zero return. User already exists. Okay, so I am using await rate. I should use async, and my return type should be promise. Okay, and if all are good, simply return empty string. Okay, so this is my validation method. Okay, now I want to create one more private method. So that method also used by the while user registration. Basically, it will contain simple logic code for hashing the password. Hashing means one-way encryption. Okay, it cannot be decrypted. Okay, so for hashing our password, there is a library like bcrypt. So let's install that bcrypt library into our application. So for that, let's go to my blog. So these are all the bcrypt library. Okay, we need to install Node.js bcrypt library as well as TypeScript compatible library as well. So let me install both. Now install TypeScript compatible bcrypt library. This is for dev dependency. Okay, now bcrypt library successfully installed. Let's implement our private method for password hashing. First, let's import the bcrypt namespace. Okay, now let's create our private method. Get password hash. Okay. Input should be password and string, and our output should be string. Okay, it is so simple to generate hash. So bcrypt dot bcrypt dot hash. So here I need to pass password, comma, and the rounds. So here you can observe round means if it's specified as a number, then salt will be generated with the specified number of rounds and used. Okay, so random salt will be generated based on the number. So I'm specifying like something like 10. Okay, so is a promise based output. So let it wait and let me return it. So what I can do, I can async and return type should be promise. So hashing is very easy with the bytecrypt library. So random short key will be used. So while decrypting, while comparison also, that key library only manages, because it will by somehow it will store that salt key along with the generated hash password. Okay. So these two are the basic requirement of a private method. So let's implement our entry method. Okay. Public generate, sorry, user registration. Okay. So here it should be registration response model, right? That's the model return type, and input is uh, payload and registration request model. Okay. So here what I will do initially, I will create a result object. So let result equal to response model. So first validate our payload. For that I can call my private method. So post error message equal to registration validation rules. Simply pass our request payload. So if error message contains something, so we need to return error message. So result dot status equal to false means failed, and result dot message equal to error message and return result. Okay. Why? Okay, I need to await it. It is async, right? Let me async, and it should be promise. Okay. Now validation is done. Now let's prepare our user object. So let new user equal to new user. Okay. So let's map the values from payload. Email, first name, first name, first name, first name. So password, I need to call my method, right? So what is my method? So hash something like, okay, hash, and pass the password from our payload password. Okay, and finally using this dot user dot insert, okay, and pass new user, and finally result dot status success true, and result dot message success. Okay, so that's good enough for our user registration logic, right? So let's go to controller and create the endpoint. So user controller. So let me create my method like user registration. Okay. and it is a post method like post. It imports from nest common. So here I can specify route like register. Okay, and the payload I need to read by body. That also loads from nest common, and I can specify request payload of type what is this type registration request model. Okay, now let's inject the service. So for injecting the service, private uh, private user service user service. Okay, let's import it. I can simply return this dot user service dot user registration. Okay, and it should be passed with the request payload, and it must be awaited and async, right? So that's all what we needed. So let's run and test. So run build go. So our application is successfully running and the route has been generated users slash register. Let me open my Postman to test. So here I have prepared my URL and my payload. So to prepare payload, select raw and select JSON in this drop down. Now let's try to register. See here, see user is already existed, it's showing. So let me show my interactive terminal. See, this is my old existing record in the users table. So what I will do, I will change my email or something like. So now we can confirm that my validations are failing. Let's test for password validation also. See, confirm password must match with password. Okay. So that is also failing. So what I will do, I will give another email, Naveen Bomedi, and now I am trying to save again. It should show some results. Sorry, I haven't given written here. My bad. Okay. So let me create another user because it is successfully created. I think let's check here. See, my latest record also added. To show some output, I am registering again. Naveen Bomedi 2. Always me see success and message. And you can check all my records in this terminal added or not. See, 5 records are added. Newly records like Naveen Bomedi 2, Naveen Bomedi 3. And you can also see here my hash password. Okay, saved into the database. And Naveen, everything. So like this, you can register with my with the Postgres SQL as a backend. So in the next video, we are going to implement logic for generating JWT token and store it in the HTTP only cookie. Okay, so that's all about this video for user registration. I think this video has delivered some useful information to you all. If you like my video, please do subscribe to my channel and we will meet you soon with a new video. Until then, signing off.